And this is an expansion to the game Ruination, which, if you're not familiar with, is a competitive area control game where players are going to be using actions to move around on a board, scavenge different resources, recruit units, gain upgrades, and try to gain the most victory points by the end of the game. The main board is divided into 5 different regions, with each region having 3 different territories, and the central area is the most valuable and offering the most to the players that control it. On a turn, players will be able to choose just one action to perform, and your options are to either move, scavenge and buy an advantage card, or recruit a unit. If you choose to move, you have a couple options available to you. You can move all units in one territory to an adjacent territory, or you can actually choose a territory to move any of your adjacent units into that territory. Something that's interesting about this is that any territories that are adjacent to this pit that runs through the board are actually considered adjacent to each other. This also means that the territories in the corners are the most difficult to get to and the most difficult to leave. But there is a catch anytime that you use these trenches in order to move around on the board, and that's that you're going to have to sacrifice either one of your units or some of your resources each time that you do it. But the other action is to scavenge and buy an advantage card, and this is also an action that gives you a couple different options because you can either choose to gain one resource from each territory that you control, or instead you can gain as many resources as units you have in a single territory. After you've chosen one of those 2 options, you'll then have the option to buy an advantage card, which can give you all sorts of special abilities or help you with battle or grant you with new ways to gain victory points throughout the entirety of the game. And then the final action to recruit units is a pretty straightforward one. You're just going to be spending your recruit points in order to add new units into your supply and then place them out on the board. Or you can also spend resources to buy special units known as exiles that are quite a bit stronger than the regular units, and they also come with a one-time effect when you do purchase them. But something that's really cool about this game is that throughout the entirety of the game, there's going to be 3 decks of cards, with each deck corresponding to each of the actions. And whenever you use that particular action, you're going to gain the benefits of the card that's visible for that specific action at the time. But once a card is used, it is discarded, and then a new one is going to be drawn. So these cards are always going to be changing throughout the game as the players are taking their actions, but they are going to play a big part in incentivizing which actions you decide to take. At the end of a round, the units in the same territory are going to end up in a battle, and players are going to be adding up all the strength of their units, but then they're also going to be gaining battle dice for each unique unit type that they have in that territory, and then they're going to be rolling those dice and then spending their rolls on their player board to gain certain advantages. And then there's also going to be some different abilities that can cause casualties to the other players, whether or not you win the battle. But then players are going to be resolving the outcome with one of the players coming out on top and keeping their units there, while the other ones get discarded off the board. But the new expansion is going to be adding a bunch more that you can mix into the game, and they're also incorporating a new concept of defense, which will be able to be used to mitigate any casualties that you have during battle. But there's also going to be new units and upgrades and all sorts of new cards that can trigger different effects and events, and there's also going to be some updated rules and changes to the way that the glory track works. If you are interested in this one, I will have it linked in the description below, and of course you can click to get notified.